little recap. We'll do a little recapping so that we bring everybody up to speed. And certainly, if there are folks here who missed the first one, you can. It's not too late to jump in, okay? Because we're going to do a nice recap. It's good to be with you, by the way. Thanks for coming today. When you see the statistic, it sort of brings home that just just the act of disappearing, you think, how in the 21st century can somebody just up and vanish? But when you look at the statistic, it's just not out of the realm of possibility. In fact, there's a whole show now, I think it's on ID, called Up and Vanished. Just people who go missing without a trace. This is one of those stories. And this is part 2 of Where is Brandon? So we recall a few pieces of information. This is a dark road. This is a regular college kid. He calls to report car trouble. Remember, they went to help him. And what happens?
He wasn't there.
He wasn't there. They could not find him. And indeed, they never found him. So these are some theories of what we think might happen. A little bit more recap, though. I just hit that admit button, Scott.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So here's some information about Brandon. Remember that he's a well-liked college student. He's got 2 good parents. He comes from a good home. He's studying wind turbines in junior college. I mean, this is a kid who is well-directed. He is making strides in his life. He's had a little trouble with that DUI, but he's gotten it back up on the road, and he's done his community service. He's really turning the page on that event and putting his best self forward. Right. So this is not something holding him back. He's being very cautious. He does not want another incident. Good kid, ordinary kid, all American kid. That's his sister down there. That's his missing poster. Again, we're talking about 2008. He's very slender. He's only 120 pounds. Remember that this involves this map, right? You're probably sick of seeing this map, right? But do you recall where Brandon lived?
Lived down in Marshall.
Yes, he lives down in Marshall. Lind, with the pin right here, is a nearby town, only 10 minutes away. He goes to school up here, recall, up here in the top left corner in Canby. This entire stretch of highway right here, it's actually a route. It's not even a highway, is Route 68. This entire drive is only 30 minutes. And so it's a straight shot, and he drives it every day. I've included this little sign here for two cities in particular along the route. One of them is Taunton, which is going to become very important. The other one is Minneota, which is right here where my cursor is, below the red dot. Look at the population of Taunton. Can y'all read that? It says 207 people. That's it, and that's all. I'm going to allude to this fact later in the presentation. Here's the map again, just for context, right? Here's Lind, here's Marshall, Taunton, and Minneota, Canby. You'll see around this large red dot for Taunton, you will see the actual Yellow Medicine River flowing right through this area. Can you see it right here where my cursor is? It literally intersects this big red dot. That is the Yellow Medicine River. We're going to do some talking about that today. I'm not going to read all this to you. I'm going to let you kind of, I'll walk you through it. You can kind of hit the highlights. He has car trouble, right? He calls his folks. They go to get him. They can't find him. He tells them that he's down here in Lind. Please come help me. My car's in a ditch. He says, I'm right outside Lind. I remember he says I could actually see the lights of Lind. They jump in the car to go get him. He says, I'll meet you at the local tavern there at Lind. He's never there. They never find his car. They actually argue with him about not being able to find him, where he actually, the authorities turn up his car. They actually locate his car here in Taunton, right? He's 13 miles from Canby up here in the top left, where he was at a party. And it was supposed to have been his second party. He partied first in what town? Down here in Lind. And he drove 10 minutes this way, we believe, and 30 minutes to Canby. And his friends at the party attest to the fact that he left at midnight. He left Canby at midnight.
They flip it all off.
So Taunton is about 10 minutes outside of Canby, maybe 15. Right? He left Camden. He didn't call his folks, recall, until almost 2 in the morning. And remember, our big question was, what is happening here? What has he been doing? This whole trajectory from Canby to Marshall is 30 minutes. He drives it to and from school every single day. If he left the party at midnight, what on earth has he been doing before he calls his folks at 2 a.m.? We have no idea what was happening in this 13-mile stretch of road if he left Canby at midnight. His cell phone hits a tower close to Minneota. We know that these are likely the lights that he saw when he thought he was right outside where? Lind.
Yeah.
He thought he was way down. We think that he is massively disoriented, right? He's describing lights. He's describing fields, fences, and water. Fields, fences, and water are not the agricultural context of the town of Lind. They are, however, all very prolific around Taunton and Minneota. All of them, fields, fences, and water. So we're starting to get the sense that he's massively turned around. We know that at one point while he's on the phone with dad, he says, "Oh shit." And how he said that is key. The line is still open. The dad reports something happened because he understood from that utterance from his son that this was a surprise. He was caught off guard somehow. Oh shit. Something surprised him, and he was no longer on the line, although the phone line was still open. In other words, he didn't say, "Oh shit," and then close the phone up. Remember, these are like fold up phones back in 2008. That did not happen. The line is still open. And we know that because the dad hung up, called him back, and the line rang and rang and rang. It didn't roll over to voicemail. If your phone is turned off, your calls instantly go to voicemail, don't they? That is not what happened in this case. The line is still open, but there's no Brandon on the line. And of course, to reiterate, look at your blue arrow here. The Yellow Medicine River runs through this area. Taunton is where they locate, do you remember? Brandon's car. They find his car in Taunton. There's no other explanation for Brandon reporting that he was in Lind other than he is massively turned around. And he was at a party. He's enjoying himself. He's drinking. But importantly, nobody says, nobody attests that Brandon seemed intoxicated or disoriented. Everybody saw him and said he was okay to drive. This is the Yellow Medicine River. This is what it looks like. Remember, we talked about how they're going to find, I don't want to get ahead of myself. This river is waist deep. This is not a deep river. It does, however, have steep sides. It is a river. It does have a current. You would have to traverse carefully. It does have steep embankments. Here's the river flowing through Taunton. I think it comes right up around here and crosses over. We know that Brandon was on these back roads of Taunton, I beg your pardon, of Canby to Taunton because of possibly, pardon me, possibly because he was trying to avoid sobriety checkpoints, right? This is the last day of college. The police are out in full force. It's not the only college party going on. There were likely checkpoints where police were stopping motorists to verify sobriety. And maybe maybe he'd had something to drink. He wasn't technically drunk, but he didn't want to risk it. So he takes back roads to try to avoid this. That doesn't explain, that in itself does not explain why he would tell his parents that he's in Lind, but it does explain why the car was where it was. It does explain why Brandon's car was up around Taunton and off the road. Remember, where is his car precisely? Is it on Route 66 on the side of the road with all these cars whizzing by? That is not where they found his car. They find his car, remember, off Route 68, off a dirt road where he has turned onto an additional dirt road, and it is on that dirt road, that second dirt road, in which he has gotten his car stuck in a ditch. He's not on Route 68. He's on a dirt road. He turns down another dirt road. Presumably, he tries to turn around. Remember? And that's when the car goes in the ditch. That's what we surmise, because that ditch is where they found the car. This is off the beaten path.
So
So
Leah,
we,
was he
yeah,
on the phone when he was trying to turn around? Or are we just guessing?
I, I don't, I don't have that information, Scott.
Okay.
I know that, and I'm not entirely clear about the minute to minute timeline of when Brandon said, "Oh shit," that was on the phone with his dad. But if Brandon is at the location of the car, I mean, remember, he's reporting water, he's reporting fields, he's reporting um, fence lines. So I'm thinking he's not. We know that he didn't say, "Oh shit," at the car, because he's at the car before he starts reporting those environmental landmarks. Um, I don't know that I can piece together the minute to minute any better than that. Um, I'm guessing, I'm reasoning, deducing that the car is in a ditch. It's at that point he calls his folks. He takes off walking, and he's on the phone with dad because he's reporting these landmarks. So it would seem to me that if he says, "Oh shit," and the dad hears it, then he had to be walking among these environmental hallmarks, the field, the water. He says it, right? I see lights. I'm going to jump across this fence. It'll be easier for me and quicker if I just cut across this field. Dad hears him say, dad, he says this to dad. There are none of these hallmarks at Lind. So with that much we know that dad heard. Does that kind of answer the question, Scott?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
So kind of stay with me for a minute, and let's come back to the phone, because when we get into these theories, that phone is going to become important. So we're not done talking about the phone. But what we do know is that he misreports. He reports in error his location. And importantly, investigators never said during this whole investigation that they believed that Brandon was impaired, that he was intoxicated, that he was disoriented because of alcohol. Because of alcohol. That doesn't mean, does it? That doesn't mean that he didn't get confused when he left Canby. The only other possible explanation for him reporting to his parents that he was outside of Lind is, what do you guys think? If he's not disoriented and confused, then why would he report being outside of Lind when he wasn't?
I think he is. I think he was, and this is my guess. I think he's drinking more than what people, nobody want to admit that he had drank as much as he had.
Really good theory. The other possibility is that he was, and it doesn't really hold water, that he intentionally reports, that he's outside of Lynn. But then why call your parents to come get you and misdirect them? That doesn't hold water. That makes no rational sense, correct?
Yep.
It's nighttime. He's been drinking. He's exhausted from finals. When we look at this map, remember, here's Canby up here in the top left. Route 68 is not the only way out of town. He could have taken this Highway 75, cut across. He could have taken Highway 75, realized his mistake, taken what is this circle with a 19? Is that like a trail? Like a trail 19 to Taunton? He could have been momentarily confused and then massively turned around when he tried to get to course correct. We just can't know what we remember us saying. We can only know what we know. We can't know what his movements were between 12 a.m. and the time he called his folks at almost 2. What we know is that indeed 2 hours went by and we have no accounting of where he was or what he was doing.
Lynn?
It almost sounds like to me that between being so exhausted and the alcohol, even if it was just a little bit, when you're that exhausted and it's nighttime, and maybe he did know that there were police traps along the way that he pulled off. I want to almost say that he maybe fell asleep
Uh-huh.
for a little bit and then woke up and realized, like, where the heck am I?
That's what I was thinking too.
Mhm.
I think that's as plausible a theory as any other. Maybe he did, to Scott's point, maybe he did drink more than his friends thought, but Brandon was aware of how much he drank and he pulled over to sober up, to sleep it off, to maybe he felt that he wasn't going to, maybe he felt that it was risky for him to drive and he pulled over, put his head back on the headrest and fell asleep. And when he woke up, that's when the disorientation really set in. I think that's as plausible a theory as any that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, because when you're that exhausted and even if you take a quick nap, an hour and a half, it doesn't mean the exhaustion's gone.
And if you consider over the course of 2 hours, you're metabolizing this alcohol while it's in your system. So it's not even like when you're at the party and you're doing it. It's further entering your bloodstream as the night goes on and you continue to compound that alcohol. So I'm not sure that he wasn't more lucid when he pulled over and made the good decision to do so and sober up a little bit than he was when he woke up and his blood alcohol level is perhaps higher than it was when he first left the party. I'm not a chemist, so I don't want to get out of my lane on blood alcohol levels, but if he woke up, like, you're starting to feel the hangover, you're starting to feel the effects after you drink. You don't I don't think you typically feel them at the party. You feel them later, right? That's why you wake up with the hangover. I mean, I've been told. Right? I've only heard this described. I'm just kidding. So I'm not sure he wasn't having really good judgment in the beginning, and then it's when he woke up that he became disoriented and confused about where he stopped to park. Don't you think? Don't y'all think? Like that's
Yep.
I think the sleeping, and you raise an excellent point. If he did that, I think that break might be instrumental to his confusion upon waking because he couldn't remember you don't remember everything after you've been drinking. He couldn't could he did he forget after he woke up and he's trying to remember what is this road, where am I? Did he forget where he had started from? I think that's entirely likely.
Yeah, and he probably thought he drove to Marshall. Maybe, I mean, through the exhaustion, he may have totally forgot he even drove to Canby and thought he was still in Lind, which was where the first party was.
I think that is I think that might be actually, and I didn't say that in my theories, but you know that thing about Occam's razor, the theory of Occam's razor, generally speaking, the simplest explanation is usually the right one. I think given what you just said, I think that might be the likeliest theory of all.
Mm-hmm.
Go me.
I don't think it's overly complicated. I think the guy, I didn't even say that, but I think the way you said it is entirely possible and maybe even probable. This whole thing might not even be as big a mystery as it seems. Let's hang on to that and keep going, okay? But I think you hit the nail on the head.
I agree with Barbara.
I think so too. However, there are, we can't know what we don't know. And so there are some other theories that are they're not out of the realm of possibility. So let's touch on a few of those. The first theory, oops, sorry. There we go. Put it over here. So the first theory is that, and this, when I say theories, these are things that are proliferating on the internet. The message boards that I've read, the possibilities that people are putting out there. These are those. Okay, so one of the theories among the public consciousness is that he staged his own disappearance. To me, that holds no water whatsoever. He's got friends, a career path. He made the phone call to come find him. This is a guy trying to be found. These things are not indicative of wanting to check out. Do y'all agree?
Yes,
Yeah.
I have my own theories on this, but I've been doing
Okay.
a lot of thinking since your last one.
Oh, good. Well, there's going to come a place and I'm going to ask you guys to chime in. Chime in anyway, because these are just things that are out there that I've kind of, racked up. The second theory is that Brandon fell into the Yellow River and drowned. But if that happens, where's his body? This is not a deep chasm of a river. This is just about like a tributary. This is a glorified creek, right? Did he slip and fall and hit his head? The sniffer dogs that investigators brought in track him to the other side of the river. We're not saying he wasn't wet. This is key. They did track him to the river, and guess what? They tracked him out the other side. So at least initially, the dogs hit on the other side of the river. We don't. There are testimonials that the river had recently dried up. There's no cell phone that is recovered from the river. There's no body. There are no bones. And investigators sort of poo-poo this idea. There's a lot of things that could have happened here. This is not one of them. And I feel kind of confident saying that too. What do you guys think?
I agree.
I mean, look, you can drown in this glass of cranberry juice.
Right.
However, Scotty didn't beam you up in the spaceship, and there's going to be evidence of that if that had happened. And there's nothing. So I think we can kind of kick that one out. If he entered the river on one side and got out on the other, he's wet. Could this have been when he said, "Oh shit," and he tumbled down an embankment into the water? If he's wet, remember where we are. We're in Minnesota. It's 40 degrees at night, even in May, and the temperature is dropping. And if he's wet from the river, then very likely hypothermia is going to set in for this very kind of. Can y'all see that? I'm moving my people around so that I can get it away from this paragraph. The way that water, oops, sorry. The way that water.
Well, we're seeing your full screen, at least on my settings.
Okay, so these people, our people are not getting in the way, correct?
Not on mine, but it depends on how they have it set up.
Okay, there they are. Okay, maybe it's just in my way. So when water moves heat from the body, it does so 25 times faster than dry air. We know that Brandon was wearing a cotton polo shirt on the night of his disappearance. This is the absolute worst fabric. Who knew? This is the worst fabric that he could have worn. It has no insulation at all. It holds massive amounts of water. And because cold water absorbs heat faster than the air around you, so you're losing heat exponentially. People in survivalist groups, mountain climbing groups, Arctic explorers, they have this quip that they say, which is that cotton kills. You don't wear cotton in extreme cold. So this theory is not entirely this isn't one I think we have to kick out in the way that we've kicked out some of the others.
But this one to me doesn't. This one in theory too still doesn't work because he was on the phone with his dad?
Yes.
Did the dad hear any kind of water sounds?
No. And when a phone hits water, you're going to hear.
Well, yeah, if he's walking through the water,
something.
You're going to hear somebody splashing.
You're going to hear that. However, who's to say he didn't drop the phone? His hands go up. If he's sliding down that embankment into the water, the hands go up, the phone drops out of his hand onto the land and doesn't hit the water.
No, but it's close. It would be close enough that the dad would still be able to hear a splash or something. Don't you think?
We can't know what we don't know, right?
But did the dad hear any background noise?
He doesn't report any. He never says that in the interviews.
And that would have been really important had he heard that.
Well, it would have been mentioned. I think.
Oh, absolutely.
He would have mentioned it, and he didn't. It was just the dad simply reports that it's an open line, and he calls back, and there's no answer from his son. So let's stay with this for a moment. Here's a part of the Yellow River in another area. like another section of the river. Can see there how shallow it is. This shows how steep it is. So we really, if in fact, as the information points us, if in fact he encountered this river, and remember, there are no street lights. This is not lit up. This is in the dead of night. There are no street lights. There are no lights from lighting up this environment. Way in the distance, he can see some lights of a town, but you happen upon this in the middle of the night. Did he drop the phone and start sliding and then hit the water? You would never ever find that phone. If it fell off of your person on your way into the water, you would never find that phone I think if you backtrack and you didn't know, you were not expecting that fall in that terrain, you would, I think the odds are high that you would not be able to recover that phone. I mean,
Maybe he couldn't, but couldn't the searchers? Wouldn't they have been able to?
yeah, that's a great point. And there's no phone.
Right.
So the town around there was
But
so
that-
lit up that he could see.
He's near Taunton.
So that's
He's
a
near
pretty
Taunton,
lit up town.
and he's near Minneota. So it could be it. The suggestion is that it's the lights of Minneota that he was looking out over the horizon that he could see.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. Back to the location of the phone. We can't know what we don't know. It would seem to me that if the sniffer dogs were able to track him there, then the dogs can hit on where Brandon's body was within 100 feet. It would seem that the phone would be recoverable to me. But we just can't know. So that's why it's a theory, right? Because it's still open. Here's theory 3B. Brandon fell into the water, started to succumb to hypothermia, but passed out in a field, and wait for it, it's not as crazy as you think, was run over by farm equipment. It's not as, I know what you're thinking. The sniffer dogs hit on a large combine, but the owners wouldn't allow a full search because you let dogs onto the property. There's crop damage, they spook the cattle. There are all kinds of reasons that a farmer might say, I don't want this investigation on, I don't want your dogs on my property. Almost all the farmers in the area helped, but not all of them. Now, why is that up to them? I mean, I think you're looking for a missing person. It's not up to you whether we search your you know what I'm saying? Like, when did that become, sort of the directive for looking for a missing person? But maybe. So the sniffer dogs hit on this huge combine. They hit on this. There's not enough probable cause to say this machine hit this body. And the sheriff can't force a search of any property without probable cause. So there it is. They had to rely on the farmer's evaluation that they searched their own property. They never found anybody or anything. There are many incidents of death by farm equipment, most notably in Minnesota. I'm going to jump over, if I can. I'd like to, hey, bear with me. Shoot, I don't want to make a mess out of this, but let me stop this one. Take a look at this document very briefly.
We're not seeing anything.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yes.
So this entire document, come on. Oh, wait. Don't give up on me. I'm sharing the wrong document.
We're all amateurs striving for perfection.
Okay, here it is. I got it. I'm going to share. Now,
Okay. Okay.
can you all see
I got
this
it.
on
I'll
your
write it down.
Yeah,
Some,
Minnesota agricultural.
okay. This entire
welcome.
list,
Thanks
I
for
want
calling.
Someone's
Okay.
not on mute.
someone's not on mute. If you would mute your microphone when you're just not if you're somewhere else, that would be great. Okay, so this document, this is around the time frame. This is beginning 2012. I want you to take a gander at all of these deaths. These are fatalities that happen in fields in Minnesota for a variety of reasons, many of them involving the land and many of them involving farm equipment. Look at this list.
Very long.
My own husband's grandfather. I'm still going. I'm still going. Now, this is over a span of years, but this is the incidence of fatalities. This entire document is full of people who've been killed by agricultural equipment and the land itself. My own husband's grandfather was run over by his own tractor. And my husband, all right, can you see that now?
Yeah.
Okay. And he never knew his grandfather very well. And this is in Louisville, Mississippi, in a farm. And I don't know what happened, but the tractor flipped over and it crushed him and killed him instantly. So this is a thing, apparently, to die by agricultural equipment. It's one of the most dangerous private industries to work in. And it has more injuries than any other private industry in the country. So we're just tossing it out there. So then this is what we're talking about.
Big.
So sorry, let me get to the right place. So these things are enormous. That's a combine. This is a oh gosh, Scott, you're going to have a tiller,
Harvester. Oh,
harvester.
Looks like a
Look,
planter.
yes, look at the size of the cornfields relative to the size of the vehicle. The notion that somebody who is drunk, freezing, his body temperature is dropping, might not collapse in this field is just that possibility seems very potential, very possible. And of course, here's another picture. If you were to collapse in this field and pass out, fall asleep, if you were to lie down in the field from exhaustion, and your body temperature is dropping and you froze to death and succumbed to hypothermia, you would not be able to get up in the morning and walk out of this area. And that is potentially a reason why an enormous piece of farm equipment could come in contact with your body. I'm not saying it's what happened, but I'm saying all things being equal, look at how expansive these fields are. Look at this way over here.
What if a dog sniffed one? And I believe that could be very possible.
I'd like
I
it
mean,
to not be possible.
right, but
I think,
but you're looking for a reason why he's gone, so
but we have, exactly, we have to keep in play everything that's in play. And what we know is the sniffer dogs hit on one of these huge pieces of equipment. I'm not sure that this guy up here in this driver's seat or way up here in this driver's seat, when he is culling all of these fields and he's kicking up all these stalks.
there's a lot of dust too.
There's a lot of dust. He wouldn't be the first person to die in this way. That's what I'm trying to get across with all these
Yeah.
statistics.
With no remains being found, bones
Yeah.
or anything, right?
No
think there'd be
remains being
traces.
found. And you're spitting things out over here. I mean, I don't know whether bones can be crushed, and I don't know that it's not possible. And then I like this picture was interesting. I liked this one because once you run over something and it's ejected, you're not even looking for it anymore. So he's
Right.
driving this combine. He's either here, this is the windshield, and things are going out on the side of him. But if the windshield were even over on the back here, you're no longer even looking for thing, and you're not expecting to find a body for sure. In the late spring of 29, this was the last search, and since then there has been detailed searching of farm areas, detailed searching, bones, remains, pieces of shirts. 5 different dogs gave final responses on a field cultivator sitting by the side of a field. It may or may not indicate that a body is scattered in a nearby field. Maybe Brandon wandered past that point and he just touched it. And so the dogs are sniffing that.
Those
I mean, it looks to me, if I had been disoriented, staggering across the field, I might have tried to cuddle up next to this thing. I might have tried to get in the driver's seat and get some protection from the elements.
There was no snow. It was clear weather.
No snow is reported, correct, a clear night.
Okay.
But the temperature is dropping. So maybe he touched it and kept on walking. Maybe 3C, he fell into the water, said, oh shit, he drops his phone. He can't find it. There are no eyeglasses. He's got wet clothing. Remember, did they find the glasses in the car? In the car seat?
Yes.
He did.
He drops the phone. He's losing heat. Did he fall and become incapacitated? And then he finds this combine. He passes out in front of it, maybe thinking someone will find him. Exactly what we said. He freezes to death. He succumbs to hypothermia. And in the morning, he's not able to move out of the way of this machinery, which we then learn many of these machines start to work before sunrise. They go to work at night because the temperature is better, the conditions are better. It's not as, I don't know, it's not as dusty because the dew has settled. Like, these are factors influencing why agricultural machinery doesn't always wait to the heat of the day when the sun is in the sky. What else do you want to say about this? It's pretty grim, it's pretty gruesome.
Well, it looks like one of the only ways that something like this happened to him without finding any remains whatsoever.
It's one of the ways.
Though, even if the piece of equipment would have picked him up and chopped him all up and stuff like that, there'd still be evidence. Any farmer would,
Right.
you're going to have blood stains and you're going to have residue and things in there. Because I grew up on a farm and ran a combine a lot, and it doesn't matter which one, there would still be some evidence. You don't take a body and chop it in little pieces.
That's right.
It's going to be somewhere.
You should
That's
find some
right.
clothing too.
That's right. You're going to
And
find telltale signs that something has happened here. I think if you were to run over a large rodent, an armadillo,
A jackrabbit.
a jackrabbit, you're going to have indications that has gone through the chopper.
probably what it's going to do if that happened, this is gruesome. It would plug the combine up.
Right?
I can't imagine that could go through there and not plug it. A body could go through there. I don't think so.
I agree.
I agree. Let's keep going. Here's another one that he passed out, that he was discovered by wild animals. If there are forests in the area, there are fields, there are woods in the area. But where are the bones? Where's the cell phone? But I thought he left the cell phone in the car. I thought
No, that was his glasses.
His
no, he
glasses.
didn't.
Glasses were in the
That's right.
car.
He left his glasses in the car. That's right. So none of these things have been found. There have been no bones discovered that have been picked clean. I don't know about this one. Now, this one is also very, very it has great potential, and it is entirely possible and very sad.
This is the one I
Brandon
thought of.
fell into an unmarked well or cistern.
Mm-hmm.
There are thousands of these. They're two separate things, right? The cistern gathers water, I think, from the rain. The well gathers it from the groundwater. These are all over the place in this area in Minnesota. These things are covered by rock and stone and brick that is covered by concrete, tile, and dirt. As the dirt erodes over time, so does the area beneath it. The bricks and the tops become very brittle. Some of these are buried intentionally to avoid people falling in. But you guys, I did my homework. This is bad. In Minnesota, there's all kinds of attention paid to sealing unused wells because of the safety factor that is posed to humans and small animals. And importantly, there's no way to investigate this issue downtown. There's no database for where these 100-year-old some odd divots in the earth are located. There's no telling where they are. You can't go search it in the courthouse like part of the estate. There is no database that will help you locate these. They're just out there in the land. And you know, you're staggering, you're cold, you're disoriented, you're exhausted, your body temperature's dropping, you're about to freeze to death, and you hit one of these suckers, you're not climbing out. You're freezing to death. And this becomes your catacombs. This becomes the vault that you have forevermore, I'm afraid. And who's to say in 900, some of these farms are 500 acres full. Who's to say? If you've got woods around the field, and there used to be an old house in the woods that is no longer there, and they had a well, you would never ever know it. And then you say, well, if you fall in, wouldn't you okay, so there's now a hole there. You can walk there and see that somebody penetrated the earth, and there's going to be a gaping hole. I'm not sure that that's true forever and ever. There might be a hole there initially, but this search was suspended after a month. You let enough weeks and months, and certainly 6 months, a year go by, what's going to happen to the top of this opening?
Probably going to get filled in.
It's going to get covered over again. And now you really have no idea where to look. So again,
This one makes a lot of sense to me because it's like if you start falling, and if he did this while he was on the phone with his dad, it'd be very easy to say, "Oh shit,"
This one in particular, Miss Barbara, look at this one that's kind of built up with like a bumper, a moat. You trip and fall over this, you're going to say, oh shit.
Exactly.
And look at the width of this thing relative to the trees around it. I mean, I don't know, you guys. I just think that if if these potholes, right, these wells are indicative to this environment and this landscape, that you have to put this one up there on the leaderboard of reasons that you might say, oh shit, and never be seen again. Some of them, like this one protruding from the earth, okay, probably didn't fall in that one. But this one down here in the bottom right-hand corner.
And if there was
Yeah.
no water in it, you wouldn't hear the splash if it was just a dry one. So the phone could be in there with him.
And if this thing is dried up, you don't even know how far he fell. He could be in there hollering. If the phone is outside the cistern, the phone is not going to pick his voice up. Just the messenger. But here's another possibility. These two, in the same way that sinkholes and wells are deliberate, oh my God, who knew that Minnesota actually, look at the bottom bullet here. These sinkholes are so prolific in Minnesota, they actually have an industry tourism where you could go and take with your family and take a sinkhole tour. You
It's
can
pretty bad.
tour giant sinkholes. Now, personally, I would think that these would be more readily visible than cisterns or wells, like to investigators, in a helicopter combing the earth for what might have happened, any sign of Brandon. I would think this would be, a more visible possibility. These are covered with porous limestone. Water runs below them. It mixes with plant gases. Fascinating chemistry here, right? And erodes the gravel. And pretty soon you have a giant, divot in the earth. There are 10,000 sinkholes of various sizes in Fillmore County alone in Minnesota. And the number is growing all the time. So to me, a sinkhole in this context can function like an unintentional well. It's the same difference, right? It's the same thing. So let's say that he crashed his car. Maybe the car in the ditch was more violent than we think. Maybe he crashed the car. Maybe he suffered a concussion or a traumatic brain injury while stumbling around the fields and farms, fell into a well, or he fell and collapsed, he froze and was run over by farm equipment. I don't even think you have to take it to this extent. If he got out of his car and he's on the phone and he's talking to his dad and he's wandering around, did he fall, hit his head, continue stumbling around with a traumatic brain injury? And this is why he's mixed up. This is why he's disoriented. He ultimately collapses or passes out, and we don't know what happened to him. There's no sign that he's had a traumatic brain injury before he says, oh shit. But who's to say? The car isn't damaged like he's had anything happen to the car. But again, what happened to him in the 2 hours before he reports needing help? He doesn't mention anything. But maybe he doesn't want mom and dad to know what happened, to know that he's been sleeping in his car for 2 hours, that he got out and he's so drunk that he hit his head. We're just spitballing now, right? Go ahead. Somebody was going to say something. So they never find him. They never find him. And subsequently, in the 15 or so years, there's been no sign of him ever. So his parents organized their efforts, and Tim Pawlenty, of all people, Brandon's Law is enacted. There's his parents. Here's his sister. A new law is enacted to help find missing and endangered adults more quickly. To include adults who go missing under dangerous circumstances. And this takes effect just about exactly 1 year after Brandon's disappearance. This is what the law requires: to take a missing persons report without delay. Remember, the police station said, he's just a college student. He'll turn up. He's partying. He's probably passed out on the sofa at a friend's house. That was problem number one, remember. Immediately conduct an investigation. and promptly notify other law enforcement agencies so that they can begin organizing and bring those resources to bear much more quickly. So they created this working group to create a standardized form for law enforcement to use. They wanted to develop a policy that incorporates these standard processes and procedures, and information that is to be disseminated to people in a missing person phase. So they created an entirely separate committee, and importantly, this particular foundation called the John Francis Foundation, they paid the $10,000 for this committee to be founded. And John Francis himself was a young person who went missing for more than a year in Idaho's Sawtooth Mountains before his remains were found. His parents lost their child as a missing person. As in addition to Brandon, his parents were at the signing of Brandon's law. And they came forward and gave the $10,000 to Brandon's family to donate to this subcommittee so that they could do this important work in changing the law in Minnesota. I thought that was really, really spectacular and heartwarming. Don't y'all? Don't y'all feel that way?
Yes.
Absolutely.
What a night! An amazing, heartfelt gesture in an attempt to pay forward, right, and to change the legal landscape for other young people for anybody to whom this might happen. This was an ordinary, remember what we said, an ordinary night in the life of an ordinary young person that for whatever reason that we haven't been able to pinpoint suddenly turned completely tragic. And we don't even know why it was tragic. We just know that they never saw their son again, and that is tragic. We don't even know why they never saw their son again. That is incomprehensible in the 21st century, that we are still having this conversation, that someone can fall off the surface of the earth or be swallowed up by it without any
trace.
Any evidence, any proof of where they went.
Is this law a national law, or is it just Minnesota?
I don't understand it to be a national law, but I do know that this is part and parcel of how a national law gains ground. It's adopted by a state, it's adopted by other states. See, this law originated it became law in Minnesota. I would guess that Idaho would be the next state to adopt the law, and it grows from there until it's a national law, kind of like Amber's Law. An Amber Alert started among the states, and enough states adopted it that it became a national law. It was signed.
Is it for just young people a certain age, or is it anybody?
It's anybody.
Oh, okay.
It is
Of someone missing under dangerous circumstances, no matter the person's age.
Brandon's law is a national law.
Oh, good.
Joe Biden,
Is it? Okay, very good.
Signed it into national law.
Okay, well, there you go. There you go. That's good to know. But that's the route it takes to become that way, right? Is that it's such a good idea. It should apply to everybody. So in the 4 minutes that we have remaining, because I'm going to have to run here in just a sec, what do you guys think? Miss Barbara, I really think that your initial comments about, look, he drank more than he thought. He pulled over to a back road to sober up. He woke up, forgot what he had done, forgot where he was, made some turns in the car, which he would have made had he been on the dirt road inland where he thought he was, and for that reason ended up in the ditch, confused about the landscape. And that's why he called his parents, and that's why they never found him, because in fact, he was 40 minutes, 30 minutes away in an entirely different part of the road structure with all of these earthly hazards, if we can call them that. I think that is perhaps the simplest, to me personally, in my opinion, that is the greatest likelihood that this was a tragic collision of several factors. He was disoriented. He was intoxicated. He wasn't where he thought he was. He got wet, began to freeze, and something else happened to him to eliminate us knowing these other five bullet points. Something ultimately happened to him that has hidden his body. And I think what happened for that last thing to happen is some combination of these other five that began with what Barbara said, just an exhausted guy who was drunk and confused.
And Leah, that
Yes,
makes
ma'am.
sense to me too, that was why his glasses were in the seat, because he took them off to rest.
Exactly.
Well, and also depending on your vision, if he didn't have his glasses, he didn't know where he was. You know, he could easily have fallen into one of those wells without, if his vision was really bad.
If you can't see your feet and what you're walking on, and I'm not sure anybody who doesn't wear glasses could see your feet and the next 5 steps in front of you when you have no lighting whatsoever.
Yeah. I
And
guess
that makes sense for
So-
this body. It's just never been found, nor any pieces. That's why the farm equipment doesn't, after you guys explained that it would clog or you'd find signs. That doesn't make much sense to me either.
There's a first link in the chain and there's a last link in the chain. I think to me personally, the first link is very sort of conjurable. It's understandable. It's easy. It's simple. I can get there in my head without much imagination. That he pulled over. He was going to sleep it off for a little while. Be careful because of the former DUI. I think that's all very easy. It's a first simple step that, due to several other things, he was disoriented enough to leave his glasses in the car and start walking. So it's a cascading of normal events that combine together. When the last link in the chain occurs, these other things have been traumatic enough and combined to make a big enough combustion that when the last thing happens, it's curtains. It's all over. Put another way, if the only thing that happened to Brandon is that he was completely sober, he had his glasses on, he fell into a well with, he said, oh shit, and he fell into a well and still had the phone in his hand, he could have reported that to his father.
Right.
All things being equal, he could have probably survived that. But all of these other cascading events, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the last piece is what turns the event from unfortunate to irreversible, from a normal event to a tragic event. And
It's sad.
That to me is the sorrow of this case, is that it's the but for clause. But for any other one of these things, the disorientation, the drinking, the lack of glasses, the confusion about where he was, we don't know that the last event would have been as deadly, do we? That to me is why, if you have a child or you have to raise a child or a teenager and you give your teenager a set of keys, that to me is where the terror comes from. It's the not knowing of the spate, the hazards of every stripe that are out there. And I know that's why moms and dads are fearful of their teens getting on the road, because we can't know every hazard that's out there. And that to me is what makes this whole thing so heartbreaking. Anything we haven't hit on? Anything else you want to add? Again, this has been picked up by all of these. Morbid is a podcast. Murder with My Husband is a podcast. True Crime Recap is a podcast. These are television shows. Here they are searching for him. That's yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. How close was the river to where his car was found?
That's a good question, but I don't think it's far. I don't recall it being very far because Brandon mentions the water, that he can hear it.
Oh.
They track his body to the river. So if they find his car in the ditch and they track him to the river, it can't be. It's a foot walk. It's a footpath in distance.
Well, I was thinking he might have just gotten out of the car to go to the bathroom and slipped into the river, and that's why he didn't have his glasses on, if he wasn't planning on hiking at that point.
Well, remember, he's got his, he says, the last thing he says to his dad, other than oh shit, is that I can see the lights of Lind. We know they weren't the lights of Lind, but he says, I can see the lights. I'm going to hop this fence. He said, I can hear the water. I'm going to hop this fence. It'll be faster if I cross this field to get to Lind.
Okay, that's odd. He didn't go back to the car.
So we know he's walking when he says, oh shit.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have to leave it there, you guys. I got nothing. I got nothing else. But this is what this picture is only lit. You only see this field because someone is shining a light when they take the photograph. That is not what that field would have looked like if Brandon were crossing it.
Yeah.
You would have had zero visibility. You could see lights off in the distance, but you would have zero visibility under your feet or probably in front of your hand. In front of your face.
Cell phones had flashlights back then.
That's a good point. I don't know that they were backlit.
Yeah.
Back in 2008.
Or a flashlight, like.
But whatever happened, he said, oh shit, and he was never on the phone again. So he becomes separated or inoperable from use of the phone at that moment. Something either happened to him or something happened to separate him from the phone.
Yeah.
And a fall would do that.
Either separate him physically or separate him by dint of where his body is low in proximity to the phone, or something happened to incapacitate him at that point. You guys, I'm going to leave you with this because I'm going to have to run. My class is starting at 1:30. I have got to boogie on. I love being with you. I'm going to leave.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to thank y'all. Thank y'all. I don't think I introduced myself, but I'm Leah Holmes. I do this regularly with Scott and for the Oregon group. I love being with you guys. I'm going to leave you with this thought because I got nothing else. The one thing we haven't talked about is when he says, oh shit, how do we know? How do we know that somebody, how do we know what he encountered? How do we know that a man, a group of people, a gang, a group of guys didn't come up to him. He saw them at the last minute and whacked him on the back of the head and took his body and did something with him. How do we know?
That was another one of my theories.
Right?
Yep.
Exactly. I mean, with some unforeseen force that we're not even considering. Like,
But I have a
Big
tendency to
mystery.
believe he's in one of those wells or something like that. Nobody's found him.
Mm.
and by this point, I don't think there's any hope of discovering him because those things get covered and buried over again over time. He happened to be in the, what do you think, you guys, the 3 square foot space of an eroded cistern or a well in the wrong place, in the wrong 3 feet, at the wrong second, at precisely the wrong historical moment in his life, and he's never going to be seen again. That is terrifying. That is why I think parents don't want to put their kids on the road at night. Now, who could have foreseen any of this?
No one.
And his parents have to live not knowing what happened to their boy. Oh my goodness. Like, it's just so sorrowful. It's so heart-wrenching. I have to go. I love you all
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
more than I
Thank
can.
you, Leah.
Thank you so much. There's my question mark.
Have a great day.
I love you guys. I appreciate your patience. Scott, I'm sorry I ran over. I said I wasn't going to do it, but
No, there's no time limit. Not on our end.
I think people's stomachs might be starting to growl. I'm going to jump off. Mwah. Thank
Bye.
you,
And
everyone.
Thank you very much.
And
Everybody's knowledge, I'll be sending out the next one. It's going to be Sue Campbell, and it's something about positive thinking. And I know so I'll get that out real quick here. And thank you again, Leah. And maybe Leo will come back and do another one for us someday.
are y'all interested in true crime? Do you like these kinds of presentations?
Absolutely.
You really do? Okay, good, because I've got some head scratchers in my repertoire. We'll do another one soon.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, everybody
Thank
from
you. And by the
Thank
way,
you.
Y'all stay
everybody-
warm.
Everybody,
Scott,
yeah,
good luck with the snow and all of that. My hat's off
Oh.
to you guys.
yeah.
But just remember, I'll leave you with this, so you know the world is fair. Hurricane season is a coming.
Yeah.
Uh,
We
Yeah,
all have our
challenges.
cross to bear.
yes.
Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
Leah.
Again,
Okay.
I'd like to remind everybody I'm still looking for new presenters. I'm up for another month, and then I'll be about asking again. Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
great day, y'all. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you in a little while, Judy.
Is there another link for the?
Yes, it's going to be the same one as it'll be the same one as the
Did you